Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Good evening, and thank you for joining us on this presentation by the Autism Society of North Carolina. Please know that this webinar is being taped, so you'll be able to return to it at a later date to get the information you may have missed this evening. While you're viewing it in the future, you'll be able to pause the presentation so that there's information on the screen that you would like to take a picture of or copy down. You'll be able to do that. I also would like you to know that you can post questions through the chat feature that's on the website. You should be able to see a little chat bubble. You can just type your question there, and then at the end of my presentation, the moderator will forward the questions to me and we'll take a few minutes to answer them. You also can contact me via email. My email address is listed on the screen. So tonight we have some objectives that I'd like to cover. We're going to identify stress and its causes in your life. We're going to frame your autism stress through the grief cycle. I'm going to talk to you about some specific techniques that you can use to combat stress. And we're going to identify some times during the day to practice these techniques. We're going to observe and practice relaxation steps. I actually have a short video link that you're going to be able to practice some relaxation techniques during this presentation if you like. And then we're also going to some ways to get help for yourself. So let's go ahead and start talking about stress. We all know what stress is, or do we? It's your body's response to events, threats, and demands. Stress, it's what gives you the push you need in order to work, study, drive, or give this presentation. It's what keeps us on our toes. So when it's not all bad, I mean, some stress is good. When stress exceeds our ability to cope, it becomes a threat, both physically and emotionally. Our body responds to these threats a different way. You'll have an increase in heart rate, your blood pressure will go up, your breathing, you'll have muscle tension, and certain chemicals are released in your body. And your immune system is suppressed when you feel stressed. So stress is unavoidable. We all have time clock schedules. We all have deadlines. When you're commuting, there's traffic, there's distracting noises. Relationships can be stressful. Any kind of change, even a good change, can cause stress. So stress is bad, right? Well, not necessarily. Sometimes we need it, really. What we don't need is constant stress. As part of our development as human beings, we all have this fight or flight response that in the past kept us alive. And the problem is, the more this response is activated, the harder it is to shut it off. So if this fight or flight response gets activated over and over and over again, after a while it becomes automatic. And even tiny things that wouldn't normally bother someone will put them into that fight or flight response. And through studies, we know that prolonged exposure increases our risk for heart disease, high blood pressure, obesity, depression, anxiety, and decreased immune system. So not all fight or flight is bad. It only becomes bad when it's constant. And there are some warning signs and some areas that this fight or flight response can cause. It can cause negative changes in cognitive, your physical, your emotional, and your behavior. So you have to pay attention to these areas. Your body is speaking to you. You have to learn to listen. So let's take a few minutes and look at how and overreaction impacts each of these areas. So if you're having a lot of issue with stress, you may see some cognitive symptoms like memory problems, indecisiveness. You may not be able to make up your mind. You may have a hard time concentrating. You might have trouble thinking clearly. You may have poor judgment. You may only see the negative in situations. You may be anxious and have racing thoughts. You may constantly worry. You might lose your objectivity or have a lot of fearful anticipation. So think about this and look at this list of symptoms. Do any of these seem familiar to you when you're experiencing your stress? I know for myself, when I am going through periods with lots and lots of stress, I do have an inability to concentrate, and I tend to be anxious. And sometimes I get caught up in negative. So it's helpful for me to just be especially aware when things like this are happening and say to myself, what is causing the stress? You may have some physical symptoms like headaches or backaches, muscle tension and stiffness, constipation or diarrhea, nausea and dizziness, insomnia, not being able to sleep, chest pain, rapid heartbeat. You may gain or lose weight because you may eat more or less. Some people actually have hives and eczema or breakout. They have pimples. You may have a loss of sex drive, or you may have frequent colds. So look at this list and see if there are any symptoms that you recall having during times when you were under heavy stress. I know several people that every time they feel stressed, they have backaches. I know myself, I lose my appetite and I want to sleep a lot. So think about these symptoms. Do you see them in yourself? Or maybe you see them in your partner or your husband. These are all symptoms of stress. There may be some emotional symptoms. Someone's moody or agitated, they're restless, they have a short temper, irritable or impatient. They have an inability to relax. They feel tense or on edge. They may feel overwhelmed. There may be a sense of loneliness or isolation. In fact, they may isolate themselves from others. They may show signs of depression or general unhappiness. So when stress gets too big, these symptoms begin to appear. Do any of these seem familiar to you? I know with myself, when I get overwhelmed, that's when I tend to pull into myself and isolate myself. And sometimes that's not the best thing to do. Behavioral symptoms sometimes are the first thing that others notice. Eating too much or too little, sleeping too much or too little, isolating yourself from others, procrastinating or neglecting your responsibilities, turning to alcohol, cigarettes, or drugs to relax. Perhaps there's an increase in habits like biting your nails, pulling on your hair or twisting it, pacing, grinding your teeth or clenching your jaw. Those are symptoms. Overdoing activities like over-exercising or maybe shopping and buying more than you really need. Overreacting to unexpected problems is another example, or picking fights with others. So some of the causes of stress are numerous, but they're also very individual. So for example, for some people, driving can be very relaxing, or it can be nerve-wracking. Some people will find driving to be stressful, even under the most mundane conditions, while others find it relaxing, unless the conditions are extreme, like driving through a blizzard or sandstorm or heavy fogs or a hurricane. So think about what some of the causes for one person are, may have no impact at all on someone else. So you always have to take a person's perspective in account when you're thinking about stress. And stress and strain usually show and have a bigger impact when it occurs more quickly or if it's more dramatic. And then the more changes that are dealt with at one time, the more stress you're going to feel. But it's the little things in life, a lot of times, that cause the major stresses. Major life stresses are rare. You don't get divorced or pregnant every day, but you do have to battle with traffic or maybe argue with your teenager, worry about bills. These are everyday things. And because the small upsets occur so regularly, they end up affecting us the most. So let's think about some daily stressors that we all have to deal with. Things like environmental, family relationships, work, and social. Thinking about environmental stressors, those are the physical things around us. Pollution, noises, or ergonomics. If you have to sit in a chair that makes your back hurt, or maybe sleep in a bed with an old mattress, uncomfortable living conditions, or an unsafe neighborhood. All of these can create stressors on our body, and they impact us physically and emotionally. And so do relationships. If you're having problems with friends or family members, marital disagreement, dysfunctional relationship, a rebellious teenager, if you're also caring for a chronically ill family member or a child with special needs, all of these cause stress. And relationships are often what we turn to support us when we're dealing with outside stress. So that's why it's important that we try to work these out, because we need supports. If your support system is strained, consider what your spouse or your significant other, your children, and others that are close to you must be feeling. They're probably feeling the same stress that you are. And so you need to take that into consideration when you have relationship stressors. Perhaps they're feeling the same thing you are, but they're just expressing it in a different way. And we all know that work brings stress. It may be job dissatisfaction at some point, exhausting workload, perhaps you're not getting paid enough. You may be dealing with office politics that can create stress, or you may have conflicts with your boss or coworkers. Think about the fact that we all spend a third of our adult lives at work. So if work is overwhelming or frustrating, that's a lot of time to endure stress. And over time, that can get to be overwhelming. Social stressors can also create negative impact on us. If you're living in poverty, financial pressures, even if you're not living in poverty, discrimination, harassment, unemployment, isolation, and lack of support. Unfortunately, autism doesn't give us a free pass to bypass all the social stressors that are part of many people's lives. We still have to cope with the typical stress that people deal with, along with the stress that comes with autism. And this is a very important stressor to consider. Uncertainties or worries are internal. A pessimistic attitude or self-criticism. If you have unrealistic expectations or beliefs, if you have a level of perfectionism for yourself and for others, low self-esteem, if you have excessive or unexpressed anger, or if you're a person who lacks assertiveness and you allow others to kind of walk all over you, all of these create internal stresses, and these stresses can actually cause some real problems for you. But what I want you to notice is all of these internal stressors are self-induced. And these are the ones that we can control and we can learn to change in ourselves. If needed, reach out to your physician and find a counselor if you find these behaviors are holding you in a stress cycle. Changing yourself may be the thing that helps you reduce the stress so that you can control it. And sadly, for some, they really do need others from professional therapists, and there's no shame in that. So how vulnerable are you? Think about your own situation. Do your stressors involve the central aspects of your life, your marriage, your relationship with your parents and your siblings and your in-laws, your job? Do you have chronic stresses like illness or finances? Are you experiencing sudden, intense crisis to a situation without intervention? And I know for myself, trying to get help for my son, who was newly diagnosed with autism, and not having any support from close family, no one lived nearby, the waiver, which many of you are familiar with, and the 10-year wait that comes with it, it was very overwhelming to think about all that we'd have to deal with. It was very sudden once we got the diagnosis and thought about the ramifications for that. So that is a huge stress. Think about if you're experiencing multiple stresses or life changes. Perhaps you just moved here and your child was just diagnosed, and your children are going to a new school, or you're at a new house with a new job. The more stressors and changes you have, the harder the impact will be. And then think about, what is your perception? Are you able to see the benefit of these situations? Because if you can, then that will have a positive impact on your ability to reduce your stress. Your knowledge and preparation is also something that can protect you from being vulnerable, knowing what to expect. What is your stress tolerance? Do you roll with the punches, or do you tend to crumble? All of this is important for you to know about yourself. And your support network. Do you have a strong, supportive relationship with friends and family, or are you isolated? All of these are important factors to consider. If you find out after considering these questions that you're dealing with major stresses, please consider getting some help for yourself. And it may be as simple as spending time talking with your spouse or significant others about what you can do, how you're going to deal with the situation you're facing over the next several years. If you find yourself isolated with no one to talk to, again, reach out to your physician and get a referral for a therapist who can help you plan things out, because there are some very good ones out there. So research suggests that 60 to 90% of all illnesses are stress related, and medical conditions can be made worse by chronic stress, and so can mental health issues. So if you're already dealing with some sort of chronic physical or mental issue, then the stress that you're dealing with can cause it to become overwhelming, and you will suffer more from that. Autism does cause stress. Studies have shown that the inappropriate behavior of a child with autism can create more stress for a parent. And children who have much more abnormal behavior, parents of those children suffer even more. If there's lack of available external supports, this has an impact. Studies have shown that if you have a close relationship with your parents and your in-laws, they can come in and support your family, and that is actually a big help. If you have concerns about your community and how they respond to your child with autism, or if you worry about your child's safety, that is an increased stressor. Also, if your child has a comorbid condition like ADHD or Tourette's, or a physical condition like gastrointestinal issues or epilepsy, all of these things bring extra stress. If you're worrying about your employment and money, If you have to miss work because of your child's autistic behavior, this will definitely increase your stress. Parents also worry about being able to survive the stress of autism over the years, and that creates more stress. So parents of children that have a diagnosis of autism level 2 or 3, studies have shown that they have the same low level of stress toleration hormone as soldiers returning from combat. And there have actually been 2 studies that have found this same result. And the hormone level, the variation depends on the severity of the child's behavior. If a child has very significant behavior issues, like self-abusive behavior, destructive or aggressive behavior, a lot of times the hormone level is even lower. The presence of adequate external supports, if you have no one to support you and you can't find help, then your stress level is going to be even lower. And also, your level of coping skills has an impact as well. Parents who are a bit high-strung, anxious, and have a negative outlook tend to become overwhelmed much more easily than those who are calmer and more even-keeled. So the long-term impact, we know, is that the low stress hormone levels have been associated with chronic health conditions that can affect your glucose regulation, which would lead to issues with sugar diabetes, immune function, and mental activity. So let's talk a little bit about how you can look at all of these stresses and look at the grief that comes along with getting the autism diagnosis and some of the behaviors that accompany that autism, and how it impacts your life as you go through the grief cycle. When we go through the grief cycle for anything that causes grief, eventually people will get to the point that leads to coping, that acceptance level at the top. But quite often, the first stage you would go through is a stage of shock. And after shock, denial comes. There may be some anger or aggression. Why did this happen to me? This is not fair. Sometimes there's depression and confusion. A parent feels overwhelmed and doesn't know what to do next. And that is often followed with a bargaining phase, where you may feel like if you just do everything right, then you will get your child back, or your child will be able to be cured from autism. And then after this phase, usually there's an acceptance of the life that you have, and you can begin to develop a sense of normal life. Your life will never be what you thought it would be when your child was little, but you do come to a place where you are more comfortable with what is going to happen to you in the future. When you go through the phases, though, please know that you don't always go through the cycles quickly, and you may not even go through them in order. And quite often, when something happens and autism has a very strong negative impact on your life because of health issues that occur, or perhaps your child has behavior that creates a lot of issues in the home or in society, you may go back to an earlier stage. And you need to also know that family members are often the first people outside your immediate family to learn about the diagnosis. And so the later they learn about autism and the aspects of the disability, the higher the chances are that they'll be at a different stage in the grief cycle. And it's going to be hard for them to provide you the support that you need. And so If your family is not supportive of you like you need them to be, it could be that they're just in a different place on the grief cycle. And if you can frame their behavior in that way, a lot of times it's easier for us to kind of help ourselves not be so upset that we're not getting the support we need. And also, we might be able to help them move on to a more healthy stage. It's important to keep your family members up to date on your child's progress and any issues that you might be facing so that they can help you. And what we know through studies is that families who function in the acceptance phase have strong support from the rest of their family. Grandparents, brothers and sisters, in-laws are usually happy to help out if they live close enough, and if you can give them a task that they're able to do. If you can keep them up to date on what's going on in your child's life, a lot of times that helps them be more accepting of your situation and actually be more supportive. I know with my own life, my mother had a very hard time with the fact that my son had autism. She couldn't accept it. She really wanted to blame me and place blame on my parenting, that perhaps I was very, very lax. So what was helpful is I included her when I went to doctor's visits and when I took my son for speech therapy or OT, so she could see from someone else's perspective the way my son really was and where he was growing and where he was struggling. So once she realized what was going on and the fact that I really did need her help, then she was able to help me. My husband was out of town for work a lot. And so she would come and stay with me and she'd help out with the cooking. Just being involved helped her get past her denial and anger and bargaining. And she ended up being my lifesaver, but it took us time to get there. So, you know, her involvement in the process of helping me out allowed her to get to the point where she could give me that motherly love that she had been able to do before I had my son. And I think sometimes our parents struggle with our children too, because part of their instinct is to protect us, and they want our lives to be wonderful. And so when they see us struggle in life, they struggle too. So think about your own situation and how the grief cycle has expressed itself. You know, where are you in this cycle? Are you at a point where you have been able to accept your child and love your child for who they are? Think about your spouse. Where are they on the cycle? And what can you do to help them get to that point of acceptance so that you can have a strong bond and you can have as happy a life as you possibly can? Also, think about your family, your parents, your in-laws, your brother-in-law, sister-in-law, brothers and sisters. The bigger support system you can create for your child, the better your life is going to be quickly. So how can we build these supports? Well, we've talked about it a little bit. Realize where your family members are in this acceptance process and acknowledge your own need for help. Many times our families and our friends would like to help, they just don't know what to do. So if you can let them know how they can help, a lot of times people will help. You want to also determine ways that they can be successful. So if you know that your parent is not really ready to spend time with your child because of your child's autism, perhaps they can do other things for you to help out, like get groceries or clean the house or spend time with your other children, or learn more about what your child's interests are so that at one point they can also be part of your child's life. And then design ways for your relatives to learn more. I know sometimes for some families, because they're so far away, or perhaps there's been some estrangement, it's really hard for you to build a positive relationship quickly. But you may be able to look around and find some other people in your life that are positive and find some ways that they can help you out. I know families who've gained support through their neighbors, church members, other children, other children's families. Like, I know a family whose child was on a sports team, and the other families on the sports team kind of wrapped their arms around this family because of the child with autism. My son is an adult now, but when he was young and we were waiting for the waiver and respite and all of those things, one of the best supports I had were the other parents that I met through various therapy appointments, and also the parents of the kids that were in my son's special education class. What we ended up doing, because we were all in the same boat of needing a break, we would arrange to have Saturday play dates, and we would take turns keeping each other's children for a few hours. That would give us a break for a few hours, a couple Sundays a month. And of course, we pitched in when it was our turn to take care of the kids. Over the years, the Saturday play dates grew into sleepovers. And, we were all still waiting for that innovation waiver funding. So the sleepovers allowed us to have some necessary respite. And it gave us time with our spouses, and it also gave us time with our other children as well. And it was helpful for our children to get that little slice of normal, because many of them grew up seeing their brothers and sisters get to go on sleepovers. So it was helpful for them. Now, this didn't happen overnight. It took a while, and it was, not a very fast process, but it did happen, and it was very helpful. So think about ways to do things like that to build support for yourself. So let's talk about some things that you can do to help yourself. Building a support system is key, but there's other things you can do to strengthen your own self-care. So I've got 12 ways that you can learn to cope and just help yourself learn to de-stress. I have to give you a disclaimer. I'm not a therapist or a professional dietitian, a personal trainer, a relaxation specialist, but I have taken several yoga classes, several years I've done this, and I've researched a lot of information for this webinar. So the information that I'm presenting is from those experiences and from the research. So the other thing I want to tell you is if you develop any pain or a physical concern while you're doing these activities, stop and consult a doctor as soon as possible. So now I'm going to turn into your mother, and we're going to talk about some things that you probably already know. So the first thing you really do need to do is try to eat a balanced diet. Use fresh fruits and vegetables as much as possible. You can go online and find apps that will help you find out how many servings, the fact that your meat serving should be no bigger than the palm of your hand. You don't want to use oils and fats much. Use them very sparingly. You need to limit the sugar intake. Try and have more rice, bread, pasta than you do meats and dairies. So you can, if you have an issue with this, you can go online and download this food pyramid, and you can make a pocket guide to keep with you. Or like I said, there are apps you can get on your phone. We don't realize how important this is, but drinking water is very important. You need to stay hydrated. Your body is mostly water, so you need to drink 8 to 12 ounce cups of water each day. And you need to drink mostly water, not soda or caffeine, tea, other liquids, things with caffeine, because caffeine is dehydrating. Poor hydration will help you use your energy better, and it'll help you maintain your energy. Feeling tired is one of the early signs of dehydration. Tiredness can occur even before you experience thirst. Most of us are aware how hunger impacts our ability to focus and work, but thirst can also have the same negative impact. So the next time you find yourself feeling tired during the day, see if a glass of water helps you out. And by all means, try to stop drinking before 8 o'clock if you go to bed at 10 o'clock. Nobody wants to get up in the middle of the night to have to go to the bathroom. Remember to exercise. Some people love to exercise. Some people really do not love to exercise, and I understand that. If you haven't exercised in years, may it be a really good thing to check with your doctor about any limitations you might have. If you belong to YMCA, they often have personal trainers who will work with you if you need to make sure you don't get injured. Some community rec centers also have that same sort of thing. I want you to go slowly and don't exercise too closely to bedtime. If you exercise too close to bedtime, you have so much energy because your heart is pumping blood and you're all oxidated that you may have a hard time relaxing and sleeping. And again, you want to go slowly. If you're not used to exercising at all, start off walking and do it gradually. Do a little bit each day. After you've done that quite a while, you may want to mix in some jogging and use weights at home to build muscle, or carry some things at home that are heavy. Of people that carry jugs of water because they don't have weights and they're heavy. The other thing I want you to think about, if you don't like running or walking, think of an exercise you do like. Dancing can burn off a good amount of calories and sometimes just as much as running. So that may be something you would really rather do. Swimming can also be as good for you as playing baseball or soccer, and it's a lot easier on your joints. If you need some social motivation to exercise, try joining a recreation sports league, or just simply finding someone in your neighborhood, or just maybe your spouse, but someone that you can walk with regularly. Perhaps at lunchtime, someone you work with would like to go for a walk with you. If you're a stay-at-home spouse, ask other stay-at-home parents or neighbors if they would like to walk, or play tennis, or take part in another activity while the kids are in school. So find ways to increase your level of exercise and go at a rate that is not too stressful for you. Make sure you get enough sleep. The average adult needs 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night in order to keep good health, according to some university researchers. So how do you know if you've gotten enough sleep? How do you know if you've gotten enough sleep? You might require more sleep if you need to have a cup of coffee in order to wake up and get going in the morning, or if you feel down and irritable and tense after getting enough sleep at night. You wake up in a bad mood in the morning. If you have poor short-term memory, or if you have a hard time staying focused and productive after you've been sitting for a while during the day. Those are all signs that maybe you're not getting enough sleep at night. So how can you help yourself get more sleep? Well, for us, parents of children with autism, many times the issue is your child is not sleeping. And we can't just sleep if our children are not sleeping. So find a way to solve your child's sleep problems. Your doctor, your child's pediatrician could be a very good help with that. I know parents whose children do have to take medication to help them sleep at night. Because of their autism, their brains just don't settle down and sleep and rest like ours do. So it's okay to ask for help with that, and your doctor should be able to help you. If you're not able to get help through a doctor, then share your sleep duties with your spouse or significant other. Another thing is if you try to get more exercise, a lot of times that will help. If your child is having trouble sleeping, you may want to try and see if they can get more exercise so that they sleep and then you can also sleep. If you can't turn your brain off, then start making lists before you go to bed so that you won't think about things and you'll actually be able to shut your mind off. Making a list before bedtime, then you won't have to worry about forgetting to do it the next day and you can kind of relax. For some people, taking a warm, relaxing bath or shower before bed helps them calm down and put them in the mode to sleep. You also might need to find your sleep-food relationship. I know I sleep better on an empty stomach, but there are people who need a light snack at night because if there's not something in their stomach, then they feel hungry and it's hard for them to go to sleep. Doctors tell us that the best snack combination is a small protein and a carbohydrate, such as peanut butter on a cracker or cheese and cracker. You might try a small glass of warm milk, but just make sure you don't use caffeine or alcohol, and don't eat a large meal before you sleep because a lot of times that will also cause your body to continue to work to try and digest the food, and it'll be hard for you to go to sleep. The other thing you can do is progressive relaxation, muscle relaxation techniques, and we're going to talk about those in a little bit. Number 5, remember to breathe in a slow, rhythmic manner. So this is something you can do anywhere. Whenever you feel tense, you can do this to calm yourself down. And you may be able to teach your child this method as well. Breathing is one of the simplest things you can do to help yourself de-stress. And if you practice yoga, you actually will learn how to breathe in a way that causes your body to calm and relax. So here's a simple relaxation breathing pattern. You're going to inhale slowly and deeply on 8 counts. So you'll breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhaling that whole time. And then you're going to hold in your lungs for 7 counts. So your breath is being held and you're going to count in your mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you're going to exhale quickly and steadily for 4 counts. So you're going to inhale, hold, and exhale. When you begin practicing this method, practice it while you're sitting. Some people do get dizzy because they're breathing too fast. You want to try to exhale twice as quickly as you inhale. And there's a special way that you need to inhale, and we'll talk about that in a minute as well. So there's 3 common faulty breathing patterns. If you breathe quickly and shallow, if you have shallow breaths in your chest, you're going to end up hyperventilating. And that is not good. That is not what you want to do. Some people will actually pass out. The other thing is many people will hold their breath. And holding your breath is exactly the opposite of what you want to do. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get oxygen in your lungs and from your lungs to your cell. And in your cells, then your body can produce energy and it also can help you relax. The other thing is reverse breathing, which many people do kind of naturally. When they breathe in, their belly goes in and their breath goes out. When they breathe out, their belly goes. Actually, what you want to try to do is you want to try to do the opposite. So I want you to put one hand on your belly and the other one on your chest and take a deep breath in. So ideally, you're going to want to breathe in through your nose Pay attention to what happens to your hands. If you're breathing correctly, the hand on your belly should rise first, and then the hand on your chest should rise second. So the majority of the air should go to your lower abdomen so that you have a 3 to 2 belly and 1 to 3 chest, or 2 to 3 belly. I'm sorry, I said that backwards. So most of the air you want to go into your lower lungs. You want to take a big, deep breath. I want you to think about pouring a glass of water. Which part fills with water first? It goes to the bottom of the glass first, doesn't it? And that's the same thing when you breathe. You want to pour that air into the bottom of your lungs and then fill it up to the top of your abdomen. And for about 7 seconds, and then breathe it out on 4. That's something you may have to practice daily. So when you have proper breathing, it's going to allow you to wake up rested when you do sleep. It's going to keep your energy levels balanced throughout the day, especially if you make time to practice breathing. And actually shown that people make better use of their food when they digest. So some people have actually lost weight. It slows down your cellular metabolism and it helps you live longer. And if you're like me, I've told my doctor I have to live to be 100 so that I can live a good long life, so that I can be alive to take care of my son. And I want to be healthy so that I can do a good job with him and enjoy my time with him. So just remember, studies have shown that breathing is very, very important. Number 6, you want to add some relaxation techniques. So relaxation is not lying on the couch or sleeping or being lazy. It's an active mental process. And you go through these techniques and it leaves your body relaxed. They're done while you're awake. And these are methods you can learn and you can become more efficient as you practice them consistently. But remember, if you're relaxed, you can't have anxiety. Relaxation battles anxiety. When your body is physically relaxed, you cannot feel anxious. And if you practice this progressive muscle relaxation for a few weeks, you're going to get better at it. And in time, you'll be able to use it as a method to release stress. The body's relaxation response is a powerful antidote to stress. Relaxation techniques can activate the relaxation response, just as the stress activates your fight or flight response. So if you can find a way to regularly practice this every day, your stress levels will go down and you will learn to be calm, even in very stressful situations. So we're going to practice some guided muscle relaxation. I want you to get comfortable in your chair. And if you feel like you want to do this, you can just follow along. So you can also go to YouTube on the internet and find this relaxation module. You probably can also find some others, but this is one I like because it's not very long. I apologize. Apparently you cannot hear the video. So hopefully you'll be able to go on your own to this website and follow along. I thought that the video was playing and I had no idea that you couldn't hear. But basically what he did was he went through starting up at his head and tensing the muscles in his head, his mouth, his arms, his legs, pressing his legs together, stretching his calves, stretching and relaxing. And if you get a chance to go to this video, you will hear exactly what you should be doing. If you have the opportunity to work something like this into your day, it would probably be very, very helpful. Sometimes people don't have time for things like this. And another option you may have is just listening to some relaxing sounds. There's a meditation website called www.calm.com. It's www.calm.com. Sometimes just listening to those sorts of relaxing music and sounds can help, along with practicing your breathing and just practicing relaxation, just tensing different muscle groups and relaxing them, starting at your head and going down to your toes. So relaxation is very important and very helpful. Let's talk about, okay, so now what? Wait a minute. Okay, no, it's not gonna let me go on. I'm gonna have to make this thing go to the end, and then we can move on, hopefully. All right. Let me. All right, we're having some technical difficulty here. Okay, there we go. Now we're moving on. So let's review these simple relaxation steps. Sit or lie in a comfortable position in a place where you won't be disturbed. You want to clear your mind of worry and focus on your breathing. So, and then you're going to follow a sequence of tensing your muscle groups and then relaxing as you use the breathing techniques. And you may have been able to watch what the young man in the video was doing, starting in one place and then moving along to arms, to your legs. You can actually pull your stomach in. You can tense your bottom and then relax. And all this tensing and relaxing for a while helps your body get to a point where you're relaxed. If you can find a way to practice these for at least 10 to 20 minutes a day, it will help you come to a place where you're not as reactive in situations that are stressful. If you're not able to squeeze that amount of time into your day, then just do as much as you can and don't worry about it. You know, we all do only as much as we can, and something may change later on and you may be able to do more. So number 7, you want to have a plan to deal with what is stressing you. If you have internal stress, you look at a way to take charge and help yourself. Help yourself develop a plan to make your thoughts more positive, to help your emotions be more positive, and to come up with a way to resolve your issues without being active. To take control of your schedule and your environment, and a way to deal with the problems you have to deal with every day. You want to think of balance. So you want to understand that sometimes the aspects of autism are overwhelming. If you find yourself in a situation where you're overwhelmed, again, just reach out to your doctor, a referral for therapy. Sometimes we need other people to help us with our issues because the way we are is so ingrained that it's difficult to realize that we could be different. I've known many parents who say that getting therapy for themselves was life-changing, and it made a big difference in their life. It helped their family come to a healthier, happier place. So there are 4 strategies that I want to also help you learn that should help with this. Number one, you want to learn how to say no. You want to avoid unnecessary stress. And, you know, for many of us, we are just kind of natural yes people. And saying no is not something that we do easily. But you are raising a child with autism, and it's not the kind of life that most people have. So you have permission to say no. You have permission to focus on other things. You want to avoid or limit time with the people who stress you out. And it's okay to do that. Take control of your environment. If the news is stressing you out, don't watch the news. I actually had a friend tell me that another friend of theirs was told by their doctor to stop watching the news because he was so stressed out over politics. And things are going to happen regardless of whether or not we're involved. Your job right now is to focus on your child, and that's where your energy needs to go, on yourself and on your child. So you don't really need to be involved in what's going on in the rest of the world. You want to avoid hot button topics. You know what they say about politics and religion. You're never going to find people who agree on that. And again, you've got more important things to do. Review your to-do list. Which things should you do versus which things must you do? Only do as much as you can. You want to protect time for yourself. Say yes sometimes to activities that give you a respite from autism. Intentionally carve out time for hobbies that you used to enjoy before you had children. If possible, find ways to incorporate your spouse in your activities as well, or your significant other. Time together doing something fun will strengthen the bond, which is the most important person in your life right now. Strategy 2, alter your situation. Voice your feelings rather than repressing them and then feeling resentful. Be assertive, and be assertive in a way that others can hear what you're saying and not be angry about what you're saying. So there's a difference between being assertive and being aggressive. Make sure that you talk about your needs and assert your needs. And again, you're raising a child with autism. You have permission to not have to be responsible or take on other people's issues. You do need to be willing to compromise, though. And oftentimes, if you can compromise some, then others will compromise as well. You want to manage your time and plan ahead. But if you find yourself in a toxic situation where you're not allowed to express your thoughts or needs, then you need to limit your time with that person as much as possible and seek positive supports in your life. You need others who will lift you up and encourage you rather than tearing you down. If you're not able to exclude the negative people in your life, then realize the be with them, not with you. And own the fact that you can't change others. They are the only ones who can change themselves. So if you can frame their opinion in their perspective and don't think you have to own it yourself, then you're going to be a lot better off. Strategy 3, it's kind of like what I just talked about. Accept the things you can't change. There are going to be some things that are beyond your control, especially the behavior of other people and even the behavior of our children with autism. I always said if there was one thing I knew for sure, it was that I never could predict and I couldn't control. So I just had to accept autism as it was and understand that my son was doing the best that he could as well. You want to see challenges as opportunities for you to learn, for you to make changes. talk about your feelings. It can be cathartic. And I know sometimes you have to find the right person to talk to. If you're not able to talk to someone such as your spouse for one reason or another, or your parents, find a friend. And sometimes another mother with a child with autism can be a very good listener, because chances are they probably are dealing with the same thing or something similar. They understand how you feel. And quite often, along with the good ear, they may be able to give you some other things to think about and some things to try. Another very important thing is to learn to forgive. Learn to forgive yourself. Learn to forgive others. Give yourself permission not to be perfect and not to live up to the idea. And remember that we live in an imperfect world, and in some ways that helps our child fit in even better, because no one is perfect. And also remember, with forgiveness, try to give others the same grace that you would want others to give to you. And adapt to the stressor. You want to change your perspective. You want to try to be optimistic. You want to step back and look at the bigger picture. Will this really matter in another month or year? Is someone going to remember this 20 years from now? Is it really that important? You might want to change your expectations. If you're being a perfectionist, remember, you've got permission to be imperfect. Don't demand perfection of yourself, and don't demand it of others. It's also very important to count your blessings and to reflect on what you have that's good and what you have that's going well. And similarly, remember to this last strategy, remember we all grow over time. And if someone is causing you to feel frustrated or have grief, think about them differently and look at it as their behavior is part of their own grief cycle. They may be in a different stage than you are. And think about what you might be able to do to help them. And be understanding. That will help them most. So let's look again about your ability to handle stress. It's going to depend on many factors. Your sense of control. If you feel like you have to be in control of everything, you're going to be under a lot of stress. So you have to learn to let go. Try to have an optimistic attitude. After all, like we just said, over time, many people will not remember a lot of details of what you're going through now. So try not to let it bother you. Try to develop a very strong support system. Your family should be the first ones that you want to reach out to and build support with. But if for some odd reason you're not able to, find others that can help. And quite often, other parents of children with autism can be a good support system for you. Keep your body healthy. Make sure that you take care of yourself, because you can't take care of others if you haven't taken care of yourself. If you're down, if you're sick, you're not going to be any good to help your child. Your ability to adapt to change is going to have a big impact on your ability to handle stress. If you're adaptable, if you're flexible, it's going to be a lot easier. Same thing with your ability to handle unpleasant emotions. If that's hard for you and you find yourself struggling and you can't get over it, reach out and ask for help. Find a professional therapist who can listen to you without judgment. For many people, a belief in a higher power or higher purpose has been very helpful. Because of autism, I have friends from the world, people of various religions and various cultures, and the ones that are doing so well, even in dire situations, are those that believe in a higher power, those that have faith, and those that feel like things will be okay in the long run. So this is very important. And if this is a part of your life that's missing, I hope you will find a way that. Those who are confident in themselves tend to handle stress much better. And I like you to know that when it comes to autism, over time, you are going to be the best person, the expert on your child. You will know them better than anyone else. And over time, your competence in helping them will increase. You're going to be the pro, and you'll find out that as your confidence and your competence increases, their response to you will also increase. So in your future, you do have good things to look forward to. Another thing that helps people be resilient when it comes to stress is sense of humor. If you have the ability to laugh at a situation, laugh at yourself, you're going to be able to cope a lot easier. So think about all these factors. How resilient are you? And what can you do to increase that resilience? So adjusting your attitude may be something that you do that's very important. What you think can have a profound effect on your emotions and your physical well-being. Negative thoughts about yourself, others, and situations are going to cause your body to react as if it were an attention-filled situation all the time. The more you practice that fight or flight, the more automatic it becomes. And it can get to the point that you can't shut it off. So if you see good things about yourself and others in situations, you're more likely to feel good about the situation and yourself. So number 8, one thing you want to do is you want to make a schedule to check on your progress. If you're not able to meet goals, don't give up. You want to keep trying to do better. Sometimes when I talk to parents, and I know we can all relate to 504 plans and IEPs, but I say it's kind of like making an IEP for yourself. You're going to make a plan to work on the things about yourself that you need to change. If you don't give up, eventually you're going to make it. And every bit of progress you make is going to have a positive impact. I know sometimes finding time is an issue. Think about time when you can practice your thoughts, things you can do to help yourself. Maybe it's after the kids are in bed. Maybe it's after the kids are in school or in therapy, or while you're in the car line or waiting for the school bus. Sometimes it's hard to practice things by yourself. Perhaps you could find someone else to be your partner. Maybe you and your spouse or significant other could work on this plan together, because you're going to be working with your child and dealing with autism the rest of your life. So that would be the most natural first person to help. If not a spouse, then again, another mother of a child with autism that you can partner with, that you can work on things like exercising and relaxation and trying to frame things positively and trying to resolve issues. And always remember that tomorrow's another day. If you weren't able to meet your goals today, it's okay. And think about things that you can do to help. How can you plan for things? If it's an internal stressor, journaling can help. If you don't have time to journal, then just write down some goals for yourself. First, you may need to teach your child to be independent, so they can handle some tasks by themselves, and then you'll have free time. Remember to try something creative out of the box, like trading babysitting duties with your friends, because unfortunately, the innovation waiver and respite, it could be a 7 to 10 year wait for that, unless your child has Medicaid. So it's important that you begin working on your needs right away, because time will pass. So you want to make a plan, you want to keep working. If your situation is so overwhelming that you can't focus on yourself, then you want to make a plan to resolve whatever issue is standing in your way. To say it another way, if you have a problem and you find an answer, then you don't have a problem anymore. So in the end, you need to be able to focus on your own resilience. If problems are keeping you from that, the first step is to resolve them using one of the strategies we mentioned earlier. And number 9, I want you to be gentle with yourself. Try to stay positive. See your own success rather than looking at all the things that you still have to do so that your child will be as functional as possible. Be sure to celebrate every success that your child manages, as well as your own successes.